Once upon a time, in an African village named Okwi, there lived a beautiful princess named Amara. She was a lively and energetic young girl who brought joy to her parents' lives. Her parents, the king and queen, cherished her dearly, and they all lived happily together until one day, a mysterious illness befell the queen. Despite the efforts of the village's herbalist, her ailment could not be cured. One night, after Princess Amara bided her mother good night and returned to her own hut, her mother passed on. Amara's bitterness over the incident consumed her, and she refused to be comforted. The loss of her mother left her depressed, and she turned to food for solace. As a result, she could finish any amount of food given to her. When palace maids voiced their concerns about Amara's eating habits, the king instructed them to give her as much food as she desired, just to make her happy. But with each passing day, Amara continued to gain weight until she became the heaviest woman in the village. In Okwi, being bigger is not considered beautiful for women. The beauty standard for women is slender waist and hips. Despite being on the size, Amara had the most stunning facial features and dimples in the entire village. She was known to be a kind, humble, and respectful girl, despite her status as a princess. As her friends began to marry off one by one, Amara was left with only Chioma as her unmarried companion. They would go out to the stream together, play in the moonlight, visit the market hand in hand, and even alternate sleeping at each other's homes. One afternoon, a handsome young man approached Chioma and asked for her hand in marriage. In just 4 days, he completed all the traditional marriage rituals and brought Chioma home to live with him as his wife. After Princess Amara was abandoned by her only friend in the village, she had no one left to turn to. She walked alone, constantly facing ridicule and cruel comments about her body size from the villagers. The constant bullying and loneliness took a toll on her mental state, leaving her feeling depressed and isolated. One day, as Amara sat by the stream where she and Chioma used to spend their days, she reflected on all the cruel words that had been spoken to her, and she threw herself on the ground and let out a deep loud cry. In what seemed like a flash, a figure appeared in the river. Amara was surprised. She rubbed her eyes with her hands to make sure she wasn't dreaming. Behold, it was the mermaid, the river goddess. The mermaid smiled at Amara, her eyes sparkling with wisdom and compassion. "Do not despair, Princess Amara," she spoke in a voice as melodious as the flowing river. "I have heard your cries and I am here to offer you a chance at happiness." Amara looked up, tears glistening in her eyes. "How can I ever find happiness when I am so alone and ridiculed by everyone in the village?" she asked, her voice filled with longing. The mermaid reached out a shimmering hand towards Amara. "You possess a kind heart and a gentle spirit, princess. But to find true happiness, you must first learn to love yourself," she said softly. Amara gazed at the mermaid in awe, her heart stirring with hope for the first time in what felt like an eternity. "But how can I learn to love myself when all I see are my flaws and imperfections?" she whispered, her voice trembling. The mermaid offered to grant her a wish that would bring her happiness. Without hesitation, she asked for the ability to make anything she said come true. The mermaid warned of the potential consequences of this power, but Amara was determined to have it. Reluctantly, the mermaid handed her a small calabash and instructed her to rotate it 3 times around her head whenever she wanted to make a request. Amara held onto the calabash tightly as if her life depended on it, her heart filled with joy. She took it home, and that night, she performed a ritual by rotating the calabash 3 times over her head. She commanded that every man in the village lose their manhood and become attracted only to her. From that moment on, they would no longer desire any other woman, including their own wives, but her. The next morning, the men woke up to realize that they no longer possessed their manhood. They were drawn to Princess Amara with an intense longing and spent their days in her hut, tending to her needs and taking turns sleeping with her. They wash her clothes, her undies, sweep her hut, tend her nails and even cook for her. Amara was happy and having what seemed like the best time of her life. Meanwhile, the wives of the men in Amara's web became angry and set out to seek the reason and solution for their husband's sudden affection for Amara while abandoning them and their children. They set out to meet one of the most powerful sorceresses, known for her powerful magic in the village. After her divination, she instructed them to visit Amara's hut at midnight and use a substance she provided which they would put both her and their husbands into a deep sleep, after which, they were to enter Amara's home and break a small calabash hidden under her bed, which would free their husbands from whatever hold Amara had over them. Then at midnight the same day, they went to Amara's hut and did exactly as they were instructed. All the men woke up, surprised and in shock to see themselves at Amara's hut. They immediately went back to their family, begged their wives for forgiveness. They pleaded that some sort of dark magic prompted them to their unruly behavior. The story of Amara's encounter with the men quickly spread throughout the village and eventually reached the ears of the king. He was outraged by her behavior and ordered that she be placed in the palace prison for 4 market days with only water and no food. Amara's friend Chioma came to visit her after she had finished serving her punishment. Chioma told Amara that she had heard about what happened and offered to help her lose weight and regain her confidence. Each day, Amara and Chioma would make their way from the palace and take a morning stroll down to the river and back to the palace. They would walk about 5 times. During one of their walks, Chioma suggested that Amara reduce her carbohydrate intake and incorporate more fruits and vegetables into her diet. Amara herself was very determined to reach her goal. She started walking herself down to the river most times without waiting for Chioma. After 12 market days, changes in Amara's body became evident. Her clothes hung loosely on her frame, a result of her significant weight loss. Despite this, her beauty seemed to radiate even more. One fateful day, Amara decided to take a walk to Chioma's husband's house. She expressed her gratitude for Chioma's unwavering support during her difficult times. They embraced tightly and shed tears of joy. On her journey to the palace, Amara's beauty caught the eye of a young and handsome prince from a neighboring village. He had come to visit his cousin in Amara's village when he saw her and he was immediately drawn to her charm. He walked up to her. He told her that something in him told him that she would be his wife. Amara was shy, but she finally asked the prince to come see her father if he truly intended to marry her. After 3 market days, the prince, accompanied by his parents and royal advisors, arrived at Amara's palace to perform the traditional marriage rites and took Princess Amara home and his wife. Amara and her husband the prince had many children and lived happily ever after. Moral of the story is, we must accept and love ourselves. We should not resort to deceitful methods in pursuit of our goals, but rather work diligently with determination to change what we can and gracefully accept what we cannot. And remember, don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, and share this incredible story. Thank you for watching.